How about that Deshaun Watson fella? Wild.
The Kansas City Chiefs are in first place in the AFC West. They are tied for that. They're tied for the lead in the AFC. A lot of week 1 reactions. Let's talk about them.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank. If you're thinking about starting a business or know someone who is, check out Emprise Bank's SBA loans. It's always good to know your options, and they can be your partner in possible.
Welcome into a live edition of the KC Laboratory presented by Emprise Bank. Member FDIC, our incredible partner in possible, one of the tremendous partners out there at the KCSN golf tournament where I got to hang out with Matthew Lane, among other places. You were just hanging out in Johnson County with me all week, Matthew.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, even during the golf tourney, I was just kind of hanging out everywhere. I was just kind of zipping around, doing, a little here, a little there, a little bit everywhere. Some people got me to swing a golf club for the first time in a decade. Had a good time hanging out with you, all the people that came out to support us, hanging out with Tuck in the office for a long time. I had a good time back there. So it was fun to come back. It's always fun to come back to Kansas City. And it's a whole lot better when the Kansas City Chiefs get an early big dub, and then we get to sit back and watch the rest of the entire NFL kind of look really bad. So it was
very enjoyable
weekend.
Yeah, shout out to Swede for letting us, hit a couple balls there during the KCSN tournament. One quick question, Matthew. Your first shot was reportedly terrible.
Define terrible. I made contact for somebody that hadn't swung a golf club in a decade. Like, it went forward. Not straight, but forward. So yeah.
Okay. All right. So
the shot was a lot better.
I heard this.
We did contact the second time.
I heard good things about the second shot, but I didn't see the second shot. I think Tucker, did you see the second shot? Did you see it?
No, I did not see it.
So it's just a rumor that he hit a good one then.
Jordy saw it. Haley saw it. There's witnesses.
Okay.
Was that on 4?
I don't remember.
Yes, it was.
All I know is I threw an absolute dart up there on the green from about 115 out. It was nice. Nice little shot there for me. So I was pretty proud. I was nervous. Probably the most nervous I've been hitting a golf club in my life because I had 4 people watching me like, hey, hit this. I was like, all right, here we go.
Which is hilarious. You play frequently. I don't play at all. And I had zero nerves about going up there to attempt to swing a golf club for the first time in a decade.
Yeah, because if you don't play well, if you don't hit it well, it's just like, yeah, I've never done this, in 15 years. Like, you at least have like an excuse for it. And whereas me, I was out there with my son like a week ago playing. So it's like,
okay.
Sure. At least that's how I would perceive it. Anyways, thank you all for supporting the KCSN golf tournament. Thank you all for coming out. I hope you had a tremendous time if you were out there. It was a lot of fun. It is one of the most fun days of the year. We had a great time hanging out with everybody, and really appreciate everybody that donated their time, money. We really do appreciate that. So let's get into some stuff here today. Wanted to talk a little bit about the Baltimore Ravens game because since the game, we've had a chance to watch the film, Matthew. We've had a chance to kind of get a look at the All-22 since our initial reactions from the KCSN post-game show. So I just want to ask you off the top, just what were your initial thoughts from that game?
I mean, first of all, we got to start out. Shout out to the NFL for finally getting like usable All-22, the new NFL Plus, Pro, Premium, whatever they're calling it. Fantastic. Yes. There's obviously stuff that needs to be worked on, but like it's finally usable again. It's like way back in the day, like 2017, 2018 times where like there's search functions. It's really good. So shout out NFL for finally getting a usable product out there. Let's start there. And then secondly, go back. You get to rewatch the game. It's so much more fun to watch. It's like, you work through the game, you find different stuff, good, bad, ugly throughout the whole thing. So I actually want to ask you, Kent, where do you want to start? Where do you want to start when you went back and rewatched the Chiefs versus the Ravens? I have a couple takes, but I want to know where you want to start this time.
So I think there was one overarching comment where I was just kind of had like I don't know if it was an epiphany, but it was just a realization and an appreciation for the depth of the roster and the role players that Brett Veach has drafted, because I thought I saw a lot of the maybe unsung heroes that this team has drafted over the last couple of years playing good football. Leo Chanel. Obviously, we got the Isaiah Pacheco in there. I thought Brian Cook had a good game. I just thought there was like a lot of like Jalen Watson playing a good game. It's not just the superstars that this guy is, drafted kept on this roster. It's also just the role players. And I just saw a deep roster, a talented roster, a group that really wasn't making a ton of mistakes on the defensive side of the football. I was very impressed, honestly, with, there's a whole conversation for me about the coverage. I thought the coverage was really good. I thought Steve Spagnuolo had Todd Monken pretty well pegged down. And so I don't know. I felt really good about that. So Brett Veach appreciation for some of the role players, and I was very impressed with the defensive side of the ball too, honestly.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I think we saw some guys like Leo Chanel really step up into a bigger role and play a pivotal part of this game. You saw guys on both the offensive and defensive side, whether high-valued players like Xavier Worthy stepping up, or guys that you like that were maybe a little bit further down the list of like saying, oh no, we really need that guy coming out and making big plays. Like saw a good Mike Pennell selling the holding penalty like crazy, which was a huge play to call back a long Lamar Jackson run. And then you get some good plays out of all these different guys and all these different levels. So yeah, I would agree with that. The Chiefs have done a really good job stacking this roster, from player 1 to like player 45. And I think we said it earlier this year, they might have been cycling out some of those guys at the very bottom end. So I'm excited to see more of those guys get to come in and play. Peyton Hendershot, he just now comes in. Hey, he's making waves. He's got Roquan Smith over there crying about him after the game. And Cam Thomas, we haven't even got to see play yet. So yeah, there's some other guys in there that could factor in, but good roster, 1 through 45. So I'd agree with that. My biggest takeaway, like my overarching thing, and this is kind of becoming a bit of a cliche. We're saying this a lot. It's like, I get it. People are tired of it. Boy, Patrick Mahomes is really damn good at football, and he just keeps getting better. He didn't have a ton of like absolute wow moments. There were some, don't get me wrong. The 2 throws on the move were phenomenal. The heater to Noah Gray that he throws as soon as he hits the back of his drop, right in between some tight coverage over the middle, like right over the ball. Great throws. There's some plays in there that are absolutely phenomenal. But just seeing how he's reading the play out pre-snap and post-snap, seeing how quickly he's processing from A to B, understanding where he has to go, where he can't go. Like, I think everything was clicking real fast. You saw him also thinking a step ahead. I think the longer Rashee Rice, like RPO, where he kind of pumps it to Kelsey over the top, I think obviously that's in the play for a reason, but you don't do that. You don't think about doing that. He does it. There's a lot going on. That even the throw to Juju Smith-Schuster on the corner that kind of gets dropped. Yeah, the pocket was good, but instead of just dropping straight back, standing in the middle of the pocket and making that up and down throw, him slightly sliding to the left gives him a little bit better of an angle to make that. But just little things like that all throughout the game. He's playing is better than he ever has. And I think you watch that game back and it's pretty easy to see a lot of the little stuff coming together.
Yeah, it's just all the nuances. And I think we've said this a few times over the last few years, but slowly, the spectacular will always be there. And the impressive little plays will always be there. And he will always have the ability to pull from that bag. But he does not have to pull from that bag as often as he may have had to as he's gotten older. He doesn't need those things all of the time in order to find success in the NFL. And so it's just this cerebral approach that he does the boring things so spectacularly and so consistently. I was watching I can't remember some of the a Stafford or a Dak, like even they're missing some of these layups sometimes here or there, and Mahomes just doesn't miss those. There's really not very many layups that he's missing very often, and it's just there's so much more consistency to what he does even in the boring little things that make it so impressive. And that's definitely like a high level takeaway for me. And I love it. Like he's just, there's small tweaks but those are truly the things that separate him from some of the other people too, right? It's that little up and down soft throw on the glance route you're talking about to Rashee Rice on that brilliant, just an absolute, I think a hole defender too. Like there was someone coming down to play like a rob or something
tipped. Like it literally, a finger might have grazed the football too, the way, and he fitted around them. Like that was the other thing that I noticed was some of the ball placement stuff on these slants. The Chiefs kind of stopped running slants the past couple years, right? Like they didn't run as many of them. And then like you go and watch and you're like, I wonder why. Oh, wait, Kadarius Toney's having every other ball ricochet off his hands. You don't trust guy X, Y, or Z to be in the right spot, right? So it made sense. This year they bring them back. And I mean, they completed I would say 6 slant-esque routes. They threw another couple spot routes right over the ball to Noah Gray on these things. They threw a couple timing routes right over the middle of the field that required a ball to be thrown into a pretty darn tight window. And yeah, a linebacker made a tip on one. The late pass got picked off, but the rest of them, I mean, we're talking super tight window throws, the ball, the arm angles manipulating to get the ball around them. It was perfect stuff, and everything's happening in rhythm. Everything is happening right when it needs to. There's not a beat off. He's leading receivers perfectly. He was exceptional.
I'm not even sure, and this is, I think there's something, I'm not sure he's entirely comfortable with that offensive line yet either. He was doing all of that, but he didn't look entirely comfortable with that offensive line from Jump Street and really didn't let it bother him. It really wasn't a factor at all in him, performing. He still kind of worked around it, but didn't always look as comfortable and confident playing from that pocket and having to move around a little bit more and maybe, try to make some adjustments from there that maybe he didn't feel as confident stepping up entirely, stuff like that. So it's he does all that. He's in complete command. And it was different because I think it wasn't afraid of that pocket. It wasn't afraid of the protection. He just wasn't entirely comfortable and confident with it yet. And the way he hung in at times was a show of confidence that that his offensive line, he trusts that group to figure it out and that that they will figure it out. And so I appreciate even that. There was a level of calmness and comfort to the chaos that he was experiencing from time to time there with a little bit more interior pressure than he might have been getting in other years. Right. And just hanging in there, I think there's some familiarity he's going to have to get with it and some belief and some trust that some of those guys are going to figure some things out. So even that I kind of appreciated about how he was handling that game.
Yeah. I mean, it was, outside of I watched it back a few times, outside of maybe the decision to try to force the ball to Rashee Rice on the pick, because I don't even know if he has that clean, if it's an easy throw to get it around Roquan Smith there. Outside of kind of that decision, which happens really fast. And I just don't know if he saw Roquan right away. Outside of that, I don't know if I have much I can really nitpick about this game. Yeah, we can talk about the P. Ryan throw being a little shorter, but it was very close to being executed at a 99% outside of that interception from him. So, and that was really nice to see. Some of it was a little different than years past. It wasn't just bombs away, but it also wasn't just go out and make everything happen. And while it was kind of short passes, I wouldn't classify it as dink and dunk either. It was a lot of tight window stuff, and the Ravens were really playing good defense behind it. So I thought he was exceptional. What else did you notice on a rewatch? We'll come back to me, but what do you got next?
Yeah, I think there was several guys that were out for large periods of time during training camp that, this was their first real game action. And I thought it was kind of noticeable at times for some of them, I thought Joe Thuney, looked like he's a guy that definitely is still coming back from injury and really hasn't got a lot of run and didn't get a lot of opportunity to play, get some real live reps. I thought, he was kind of, he was knocking some rust off for sure. I thought Chris was insanely good early in the game and maybe lost his conditioning just a little bit towards the end of that game. But I think that will be resolved very quickly. I know we've talked a little bit about Bolton previously. He's definitely still getting his legs underneath him. I just thought all these guys were, they're not in the best shape yet. They're not, entirely in game shape. That was a huge step forward for all of those guys to just kind of get back into the swing of things. And I think that'll pay off big. And the fact that this team left a lot on the table, played well, beat one of the top AFC contenders, and have several guys that are still just kind of getting back into the swing of things a little bit here, knocking a little bit of rust off. I felt like that was a big step for this team too. So, it's always nice to win. It's always nice to win when you're still knocking the rust off. And to be honest, a lot of the National Football League's knocking the rust off right now. The Chiefs try to hit the ground running and are normally pretty good about it. But yeah, it was good to see this team win despite some of that happening.
Yeah, I think Justin Reed can be thrown into that too. I think Justin Reed actually got acclimated pretty well as the game went on, though. Like I felt like he kind of found his footing a little bit quicker than some of those other guys. But yeah, to start the game, they had guys that hadn't had a lot of preseason or any preseason reps that took some time to work back into it. Jalen Watson, another guy that the Chiefs force-fed reps in that final preseason game, and it was ugly. It didn't look good. He was going up against pretty poor competition. It was ugly, and come out in this game and there was the underthrown deep ball DPI to start the game, early on in the game, which was unfortunate. Bad play by him, unfortunate situation. But from that point on, he played pretty good, right? He played pretty good. I do think that Rashad Bateman was giving him and Joshua Williams some trouble, but overall, these guys that spent some time out, they got better as the game went on. You would expect them to. They will continue to get better as the season goes on. So that's promising. And another guy that I think will get better as the year goes on, but started out with a pretty solid baseline, was Kingsley Suamataia, right? He's in there at left tackle.
Pause. I have been asked a couple of times. Suamataia. That's it. Not Suamataia. Suamataia.
Suamataia. He was playing. I'm getting it.
God.
It's okay. Honestly, I pronounced it wrong for a long time, as everybody did going up to the draft. The Chiefs drafted him, and we got the pronunciation guide, and I have to focus so hard now to say it incorrectly, to continue the bit of saying it. I have to focus. That's why I pause every time before I do it, because I have to remember how the right way is, and then how I say it wrong every time.
Look, we don't have Craig this year. I've got to correct some pronunciations here or there, man. I gotta get into it a little bit.
It's fine. I'm gonna still pause though and see if I can do it the wrong way. You yelled at me enough for Felix, so I figured I gotta find a new one now.
Oh man, that one was something.
Okay, so Kingsley's out there at left tackle. I think PFF kind of did him dirty. They gave him a really bad run block grade, and I think that kind of caught some eyes. I don't see how. I thought his run blocking was generally pretty good. They didn't ask Kingsley to do a whole lot as a run blocker. He was down blocking into combos a lot from the backside. He was hinging out. They didn't ask him to be a key cog to a lot of the runs, unless that one hold penalty, which was, pretty 50-50, really, really killed him. I don't understand how one can watch and say anything particularly negative about him as a run blocker. Thought he did a great job getting in space. The athleticism is real. It pops left and right out there. So the run blocks, I thought he was fine to good. Fine to good. He does a good job sealing on his down blocks. He has great range. The consistency will come with that. So I kind of gloss over seeing the struggled as a run blocker aspect. I do think in pass protection, there's going to be a little bit more to work through as the year goes on, right? And that's fine. That's acceptable. It didn't derail the team. Obviously, there was a couple plays where his pressure that he was giving up may have impacted the play. There was a couple plays where I thought was in the process of giving up pressure, but the ball was already out, or Mahomes started to move, that maybe are things to be worked on. But overall, I think you saw promising stuff from Kingsley at left tackle as a pass protector, but there's definitely things that you have to be slightly worried about going forward. He still opens his hips way too early. His hand timing, when he doesn't get to be the one to engage first, when he's not the one firing hands first, the hand timing's a little off. So there are things that are going to need to be fixed as the year goes on come playoff time, but I thought it was a pretty good first start.
Yeah, no, and I love, again, I think I said this in the post-game show. I love that they threw him to the fire. And I love that they're throwing him to the fire just in every capacity. It started at training camp. They've given him a ton of opportunities. They've given him run with the ones. And yeah, he didn't get a ton of time in training camp because he got treated as a starter. And I think they were just wanting to make sure that they manage their offensive line depth heading into the season. Totally understand it. So that gives, the Ravens become a big challenge for him, a big test for him. And yeah, I think it was up and down. I think as expected, it was not unplayable tackle though. It was a very playable left tackle, and that's a huge positive for a guy coming into year one, a 21-year-old kid that's barely 21 years old. Getting him out there and throwing him into the wolves a little bit against a tough opponent was good. And there was definitely some inconsistencies there. I mean, it's still some of the same stuff that you saw with him at BYU, with his inconsistent hand placement, but you see the athletic ability, you see the physical traits, you understand why the Chiefs are throwing him out there. And I think it was largely positive. I felt good about the outlook of Kingsley Suamataia. I felt good about it. So, yeah, it was really encouraging and exciting to see that. I'm pleased with where he's at in his developmental arc. One thing I wanted to ask you, Maddie. So, like, I just felt like I don't think the Ravens had a ton of answers in the passing game in structure. I think Lamar made him pay with some big explosive plays out of structure. But largely just watching that game, especially in the second half, it really did kind of feel like, for the most part, the Chiefs had a beat on what the Ravens wanted to do in the passing game. They had it covered up pretty well. And yeah, I don't know how many answers Ravens really had outside of trying to solve some problems outside of structure and letting Lamar create. And that's really where this team kind of got him. But I thought coverage was actually really good for that Chiefs secondary.
Bevo strong, Devin. Yeah. So also, I agree with you defensively, right? The Chiefs had, I think, a really good idea. They do always have a good idea how Lamar wants to play, but they had a really good idea of what even Todd Monken wanted to do in the pass game, right? Take away Zay Flowers, put your best corner on Zay Flowers as much as you possibly can, and Trent McDuffie. Try to make that be the matchup you can get as much as you can. When you can't, they're going to throw a lot of bracket. I mean, the Chiefs threw a lot of brackets. They did a lot of safety inside, outside shade on Zay Flowers. And like, you're taking him away, and that felt like it really took away a lot of what the Ravens wanted to do in rhythm. Everything after that became, how can they're all making plays out of rhythm. Isaiah Likely, great game, but a lot of it was kind of out of rhythm or there in garbage time where he was just catching a lot of stuff in the flat. That was really all they were getting done. It was either checkdowns to running backs or finding stuff out of structure, because the Chiefs were either letting McDuffie work on Zay Flowers or they were getting that bracket when they didn't have the matchup they wanted. And it didn't seem like the Ravens did a good job of figuring that out. I do think, though, it looked bad when we were watching live. We were watching together. We're yelling about it. Can they please contain? Can you get some pass rush lane integrity? Because it looked really bad for a long time. And I do think in the first half, it was starting to become a little bit of a problem when Chris Jones, Turk Wharton are having all the success getting upfield, even with your D ends playing very conservative and they're contained. Lamar was escaping up the middle, and then just he's too fast for Bolton, for Schnall, for Drew Tranquil to corral them unless they're right there. So the adjustment was, okay, you can't block Chris Jones or Tershawn Wharton on the interior. You guys just can't. We're going to let one of those guys loose, and he is going to get pressure, and we're going to allow Lamar Jackson to run away. We're not going to let him break contain, but we're going to allow him run away from this D tackle, but we're going to put Leo Schnall right there over the center, and he is going to stay 2 yards off the line, and we are going to try to corral Lamar Jackson as soon as he breaks contain, as soon as Jones or Wharton gets pressure. So the goal was essentially to flush Lamar, make him a scrambler, but prepare for it. And I thought they did a great job with that. So you take away the in-rhythm play to Zay Flowers, you then have an answer for Lamar Jackson, or for the scrambling of Lamar Jackson. And I think that led to a pretty hard Ravens stall in the offense in the second half.
Yeah, I didn't think the Ravens ever felt comfortable. So that was always that was also really good to see, right? Like, I don't think they really found a ton of footing throughout the entirety of the game. That's a credit to C. Spagnuolo. And obviously next week's going to be a different challenge. Be a lot different challenge. And I can't wait to talk about that one a little bit. But yeah, any other thoughts on this game before we move on?
Yeah, I do. I got one more big one. The Chiefs, before this game, they go out and they pay Noah Gray a good bit of money, right? They give him a pretty good contract for a guy that has been a number 2 tight end, and a good number 2 tight end, but like hardly like a ground, a league breaking 2 tight end, not a guy that has to be on the field anytime, that has a huge impact on games. Boy, in this game, though, I think rewatching it back, I think I kind of get what the Chiefs are going for here a little bit. It's still a different style. Okay, so I want to preface this. It's still a different style, but they were weaponizing Noah Gray in a similar fashion that the 49ers weaponized Kyle Juszczyk. He's not as powerful. He's not a lead blocker through the hole from a fullback standpoint the same way Juszczyk is. But what they do is the way they were motioning him in, they were calling a snap with him moving one direction. Post snap, he's stopping, pivoting, and coming back the other way and still making it through the hole as a lead blocker. Go back and watch Xavier Worthy's end around. Noah Gray's moving the opposite direction at the snap. He pivots and comes back across and lands the kickout block. Multiple times they ran the counter play, the GH counter, where he's moving in motion opposite of the run, pivoting out post snap. They were doing stuff like before they were getting out into pass routes with him that just require a different level of agility than most tight ends are going to have. So they really found a way to use his athleticism as a weapon. And so he was blocking as good as he ever has because they were keeping him on the move. That's a big thing. He's never been a guy you can put in line and tell him to go head up on a D end and get a lot of movement, but you keep him on the move out in space. He's been great. Now they found a way to go with a more downhill gap style run scheme, but also keep him on the move without it being directly on the line of scrimmage. It was a really good game plan for Noah Gray. I do think the Chiefs paid him very clearly. I guess they're a smart organization. I know, surprising. They very clearly had a plan, though, for him going forward, and I really think we saw a good inkling of that into week one. They used him a lot of ways.
I thought, Brett Veach made a comment that, that they're trying to keep more tight ends on the roster because they want to feature Noah Gray in the offense more. Well, there's the feature and there's the contract. So he is so back, baby. Noah Gray signs that extension. He's back at Kansas City. We'll be back right after this break.
Shop Chiefs tickets and more with no fees. Plus, save big with code KCSN at ticketsforless.com, the official ticket provider of KC Sports Network.
Thank you, everybody, for hanging out with us. And just a reminder, yes, that Tickets for Less code, KCSN, promo code KCSN, will get you the best discounts available on ticketsforless.com. So if you are looking to buy tickets for any upcoming Chiefs game, make sure you're going to Tickets for Less. Using that code, you'll get the best guaranteed discounts that they have available. All right, let's talk a little bit about week one, because the full slate of games has been largely completed outside of Monday Night Football, which thank you those watching instead of that. We appreciate you. But yeah, I wanted to just
I'm doing both. Everybody can do both. You can watch the game and listen to us. It's allowed.
That we could do a second screen watch party. Who knows?
Lighting changes.
I thought the Jets would be able to find a little bit more offense than that one drive. Anyways,
Dude.
You and me got to watch. We watched the Eagles-Packers game together. We were at the house. Yeah. But we got to see the entirety of week one. Matthew, the second best team in the AFC is...
I'm going to answer that in one question. We did got a question from the chat from Devin. We kind of moved on from what we were talking about from the game. But since he's a fellow Bevo Stronger, was Bolton as bad on the rewatch as he was live? Bad, I think. He wasn't good, but I also think it's very clear that a lot of it was shaking off rust. And not just physical, not just like the physical rust of having to run around. It was mental. He was clear. You go play a preseason game, and whether it's just 2 drives, you have to get the brain firing. You have to read keys. You have to key on what's happening. You're preparing for a game, and then you're translating it to the field, for 18 snaps, 25 snaps throughout a preseason. These were his first snaps. He hadn't done that yet. So I thought he was even processing a little slower than he's going to come next week, the week after. So it wasn't his best performance, but most of it very clearly looked like rust to me. I don't know if you had any other take than that, but I think it's all stuff that will get better as he gets more reps again.
Yeah, and we said it during the post-game show. It's not something to be worried about. It's just, he hasn't got a lot. He's got to be active during the offseason all that much either. Like, he's dealt with injuries. This is, it's a lot to just jump into week one. I thought there were definitely some rough moments. And by the way, watch Nick Bolton's body language. He'll tell you that he had some rough moments in that game too. If you watch some of the plays there too. So, but it's not something to be worried about. He'll be what he's been, and it'll be sooner rather than later. And that's what I'm saying. Getting wins with Bolton and Chris Jones and Joe Thuney knocking that rust off against perhaps the second best team in the AFC, Matthew.
Yeah, from what I saw, the Ravens got to be in heavy contention for the second best team in the AFC. I mean, it could also be the Patriots. And I mean, that beating they put on the Frogs is pretty tough. If I were to, I'm not really looking at, win-loss record. I'm kind of looking at how they got to them, how I think the whole game played out. The Bills won in an impressive fashion. It was a very superhero Josh Allen game, which is how they're going to have to win a lot. And I don't know if I think the rest of that team that the Bills have is going to be good enough to rely on Josh Allen to superhero them to, 12, 13, 14 wins and playoff wins. So I struggle going with the Bills. Nothing else about that team overly impressed me besides Josh Allen being great. That's why he's clearly the number 2 quarterback in the NFL. So yeah, the Ravens might have been the second best. And that's crazy because similar to Josh Allen, I don't think their offense was that good. I actually thought their offensive line was pretty bad. I didn't think their receivers beyond Zay Flowers were overly good. I thought Derrick Henry looked absolutely awful. The defense was still great, but I didn't think their offense clicked super well either, but I at least have faith in their defense. So the Chiefs might have beat the second best team in the AFC already. But I mean, is there anybody else in contention for you? Ravens, Bills, anybody else?
I was going to say maybe the Miami Dolphins. They played a tough game against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Both those teams went down to the wire. You mean the Miami Dolphins still have Tyreek Hill. very clearly. I thought Tua played a pretty decent game for the most part. I was surprised that they only put up 20 points in a game, but like that's kind of a credit to the Jaguars, who I think are a little bit saltier too than maybe we're giving them a little bit credit for. But I think the Dolphins can still be in contention, but the Bills, the only thing with the big Josh Allen is very obviously the second best quarterback in football, and I will argue that and defend that to this day. I think it's crazy that we acknowledge anybody other than those two. It's Mahomes, gap, Josh Allen, gap, argue. Like, figure it out. I don't care. It's not Joe Burrow number 3, but just figure it out. And the thing with the Bills is, Josh Allen was definitely playing superhero ball. I don't think that group has a ton of explosiveness. I think they lack explosiveness. And like that was the thing that gave me a little bit of concern just watching them. I think James Cook might be their most explosive weapon, offensive weapon. And I don't know if that's going to be a model that's sustainable for them. I don't think they have anybody that can really challenge down the field vertically. That would be just like the pause. And like their defense didn't look particularly great either. It is going to be a lot of hero ball. I think it's probably the Ravens. And I'm not scared of the Ravens.
Texans, did you get to see much of the Texans-Colts other than Anthony Richardson being an absolute alien, launching a ball 67 yards after slipping on terrible turf off his back foot because a guy was right in front of him?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think the Texans can be a legitimate contender. I found them, to be like, I do think they kind of looked a little bit like a sophomore team that's still ascending and trying to figure some things out for sure. Yeah. CJ Stroud still did some very impressive things and some creative plays out of structure.
If they consistently get that from Joe Mixon, they get a lot scarier. But like also how much of that was Joe Mixon and how much of that was a, Kyle Shanahan disciple running as an offensive coordinator versus a Colts defense that, is right. So like they're a little bit more wait and see for me. They obviously have enough firepower on offense and enough young players on defense that I think they're going to be in contention for that. But the bits and pieces I did see of that game, I didn't think that they looked quite as the Texans offense or defense didn't look as good as I thought the Ravens defense looked, just like on a schematic play-by-play basis. I don't even know if I think that their offense looked as good as the Bills did, even though the Bills was entirely like, hey, Josh Allen, go drive your head through a brick wall until something works.
Yeah, I think that's right. The defense didn't look great. They gave up. Now, to be fair, they gave up a couple big explosives, and if you take away those 2 explosive plays, it's 13 points. I mean, a 65-yarder or whatever where Anthony Richardson did alien-like. I love Patrick Mahomes. Do we think Patrick Mahomes can make that throw? That not particular throw?
I don't think that Mahomes has like that raw level of arm strength anymore of that kind of distance. I think he needs a good crow hop. I think he needs a good hop into it. He needs a runway to put everything into it to get that throw off. So no, I don't think he makes that throw. I don't know if Josh Allen makes that throw because I don't think he can get it out as fast.
I don't either.
No, can he stand there with his feet planted and throw the ball that far? Absolutely. Can he do it after slipping and leaning back in the time? And with the timing though, I don't think there's anybody in the NFL that can. I think that was a 1-on-1.
That was insane. That was one of the craziest things I've ever seen. And like, look, I don't need to say this. It's not blasphemous or whatever. But it's just like I don't know if Josh Allen does that either. The way that Anthony Richardson was able to make that throw was ridiculous, man. Any teams surprise you this week at all, Maddie?
Any team surprise? I mean, okay, we talked about it briefly. Like the Colts, just the way. Oh, yeah, okay, we'll get there in a second. The way that Colts offense worked, to where it did absolutely nothing and then was hitting bombs, was kind of crazy. That was a big one. Are we sticking AFC mostly or any team?
No, whatever you want, man.
Oh, okay.
Whatever.
Kirk Cousins can't play. They got to put Michael Penix in. I don't think he can play right now. Like we're talking about Nick Bolton, right? And Chris Jones, the other guys knocking off rust. Sure, I can make the same argument that Kirk Cousins needs to knock off some rust. I don't think he can move. I don't think he not only can move, I don't think he can plant and throw. I think they ran shotgun or pistol 97% of the time. 100% of the shotgun reps were passes. Like 80% of the pistol reps were runs. He can't drop, plant, and throw. The final play of the game, I think it was, he hit the back of his drop and he had to rifle a ball in there to a window that was there, but you had to put it in there. he had to do like a Mahomes lean on his left foot and kind of like just lift up on his hip and just throw it. And he doesn't have the arm for that. I don't think they can play him.
You ready for a little tinfoil hat theory here?
Sure.
What if the Atlanta Falcons kind of had an inkling that the Achilles was going to be a bigger problem back in April? And that's why they drafted Michael Penix.
Well, okay, one, then they shouldn't have paid him. Like if they brought him in like that and they did his medical.
I think there was some desperation in the Falcons making that decision. They made a desperate decision, and they had to make a desperate decision. And maybe even Arthur Blank wanted them to make a desperate decision. And
coming off an Achilles, they better have had concerns. And yeah, you're right. Maybe it was more concerns than we thought. Just he can't play. Like, I mean, I don't know what's going on there. He can't play. The Michael Penix choice now, if they're trying to save this season, looks great because like I don't think Kirk Cousins can do it this year if that leg doesn't get significantly improved. And I mean, we saw last year, Joe Burrow had to change everything about how he played and how he threw a football. And that led to the most like unknown wrist injury of all time for a quarterback because he couldn't use his right calf at all.
Yeah, I don't know if there was any other big surprises. I thought the Cowboys played well.
I got some. Let's go through a handful of games here. Yeah. Cowboys, Bears or Browns, biggest takeaway.
Cowboys look good. Deshaun Watson is horrendous for every reason imaginable and unplayable, and they should cut bait now. And he's terrible on and off the field.
Cut bait. That's the
I know. No, what I mean by that. Yeah, they have to sit there and let that cap hit forever. But like they should play Jameis. They should just go play Jameis. They did it.
I was watching that game. I believe it was on an airplane or in the airport. And like, it got to a point where I was like, oh man, this game's got to be over. I've just seen like 30 straight terrible Deshaun Watson dropbacks or like drives. No, it was like midway through the third quarter. I just had seen so many terrible. I mean, that was one of the most disgusting things I've ever seen. The only thing that compares to that is watching Bo Nix play quarterback. What is he doing? I don't understand. Understand.
Okay, so Bo Nix lives in the flats, but not in a game management perspective, but in of like, I'm terrified to throw the football anywhere kind of perspective. He is consistently just working down into the flat, and it's just out of just like terrified. And one of the questions that I had about Bo Nix is like, I've seen him throw confidently with anticipation over the middle of the field. And it didn't really exist in structure. He had like, I think one nice play down the field over the middle of the field, you know, in the middle, but just like, it was more just like a scramble type play. He was awful. He was really bad. And anyone telling you he was okay or what, he was terrible. He was one of the statistically worst quarterbacks in one of the worst statistical games in the history of the sport. 3.3 yards per attempt. And like the list, I think Benjamin Solak tweeted it out, but it's like the list of players that have thrown for that many yards, like 148 yards on 42 attempts or 138 yards on 42 attempts is small, and it's not a good list to be on. He's bad. Oh, by the way, led the Broncos in rushing to that game. So not great.
Man. Yeah, he was bad. He was hard to watch. We don't have to have big long takes on a lot of these, but we'll touch on some stuff that caught mine. Bryce Young, also very bad. Time to panic in Carolina?
Yes.
Those Chiefs Panthers tickets are looking real good right about now. That can't cost very much money to go watch that product.
Yeah, the David Tepper Carolina Panthers, they're somehow worse than last year. So
pay me to watch that team.
He probably should actually, but he probably will like take your hat off and disrespect you.
Oh yeah, he'll yell at me for having a hat on.
Yeah, he's just
wearing a hat to the stadium.
That organization's a mess. Tepper's a mess.
Saints looks fun. Derek Carr had some swag to him.
No, dude, hold on. Are the Saints still the most boring team in the National Football League?
Yes, because even Derek Carr's swag and trash talk was, "I got 3 touchdowns on you." That's like all he said is, "I got 3 touchdowns on you." You're cooking them, you're talking shit, and all you can say is, "I got 3 touchdowns." Like,
it's all he's got, man. Okay. Any other games that you wanted to talk about?
Let me see. I'm scanning some box scores now. I mean, we'll talk more about the fraud goals later in the week. And we
and
got
a little bit
up later in the show. Oh, perfect. We don't even need to talk about them then.
I'm not worried. I will say, shout out the Chicago Bears for coming back and beating the Tennessee Titans, coming back from a 17-3 deficit. I appreciate you. And shout out doing it basically without Caleb Williams playing well at all. I know that Brian Callahan basically said they could have punted on 1st and 10 every play and still won that game. I think you could almost say the same thing for the Bears. If they just put it on 1st and 10 every single play of that game, they might have won that game too. So
yeah, the Titans had like one drive that they ran the ball on and it worked, and that was it.
The quarterbacks combined for 220 passing yards on 61 attempts. Like it was bad. It was really bad. Caleb, go. No,
he'll be fine. He'll be fine. Caleb will be fine, but it was a bad game. It was it was a really bad game. He was missing the open throws he did have. He looked, I don't want to say panicked, but he looked very frantic in the pocket, which is something he did at USC at times. Like if there was no pressure and the timing wasn't even wrong, there was no reason for him to be like starting to really move. Like Mahomes, when things aren't like, when he's not under pressure, but things aren't happening as quick as he wants, he'll start to drift. Caleb like just starts to run. And like he was doing that real quick. It wasn't a good showing, but I think you'll be fine. Not like overly worried, but like it was a really gross. It wasn't just like, oh wow, that was unlucky. No, it was a really bad game.
Yeah, and I think all the quarterbacks struggled. Like we just dunked on Bo Nix, but like Jaden Daniels had his struggles, and Caleb Williams had his. Like all the rookie quarterbacks pretty much had their issues this week, and didn't look great.
3 more takes for these games.
Oh, fire them up, buddy. Let's go.
Okay. Eagles and Packers both stink. That was bad football. Like I know the Brazil the field in Brazil wasn't good. That was just really bad football though, for the most part. Like we were watching it together. They were slipping, which was, it's hard to say. So like, tell me in week 6 that these teams got better. Sure. It's gonna happen. I want to be very clear. Teams will get better, but neither one of those teams played good football. The game got really exciting. It was really fun to watch in the second half. They went from nobody being able to score to nobody being able to get a stop, but it was not good football. That's first. Number 2, I still can't believe people think that Jared Goff's winning a Super Bowl. Like that's takes that are out there. That's a common Super Bowl pick. I just watched him play at home in the perfect environment, and like no,
against a not elite defense, not a great defense.
A defense is playing Yumi and Tucker.
Yeah, I mean they got some
linebacker. Name a linebacker for the Rams right now.
Rose Boom.
Sure.
Name
a corner.
Jacoby Durant.
Name another one that didn't almost have a pick at the end of the game.
Tre'Davious White.
Let's go. Got torched. He couldn't even tackle a player for pass interference.
I thought, dude, you look good as Jared Verse. Jared Verse looked good. He had a good game. I was like, all right, Jared, I see you, my man.
Kobe Turner could be good together. Those are 2.
No,
I had one last take here too. Antonio Pierce, worst head coach in the NFL. Oh, sorry, you can go back to that.
We already knew that one. Everyone already knew that one. But maybe Mark Davis could get him cheap. I don't know. I do have one more take.
Let's go.
Sam Darnold.
Oh, let's go, Big Sam.
Stand up, Samuel. I see you, man. I see you working a little bit. Like, I thought he had a pretty solid performance there. Like, it wasn't completely spectacular across the board as far as just like wow plays. But like, I mean, he made a couple really nice throws, and I mean, he had a dot to Justin Jefferson, protected the football pretty well. Like, nice, solid, efficient game against possibly the worst quarterback in the National Football League. Daniel Jones, you are absolutely cooked. Now you are expensive, but you are absolutely cooked. And I don't think there's insurance on this burnt down house that is Daniel Jones. The New York Giants are out big time on this one. They are screwed. It is over.
I love that there's a huge competition for the worst quarterback in the NFL. Bryce Young, Daniel Jones, Deshaun Watson, Kirk Cousins right now.
Knicks.
There's so many contenders for the worst quarterback in the NFL. I thought Donald was pretty good. He like blacked out and thought he was back at USC and Penn State and what was the Rose Bowl? I think he like just like blacked out and like transported back there because all of a sudden he was playing with confidence again.
All right, before we get out of here, we just want to address the last team that we really haven't spent a lot of time talking about yet, but has that will be playing the Kansas City Chiefs here on Sunday. Yes, the New England Patriots. Oh, wait, no. Not the New England Patriots, who were projected to have the worst record in the NFL this year. No, it was the team that lost to the New England Patriots at home, the Cincinnati Bengals, who will be coming to Arrowhead on Sunday to play the Chiefs. And look, there's been talk that the vibes aren't great in Cincinnati. The vibes are bad.
Oh, yeah.
And maybe it was Ja'Marr Chase holding out and won't he be playing in this game. It's Joe Burrow and, coming back from an injury that, Maddie, I believe you said has never happened to an NFL quarterback before.
Yeah.
Ja'Marr Chase, every time he stands in front of a mic, makes things worse somehow. Just a lot of drama in Cincinnati going on right now.
Yeah, there is. Their offensive line was okay, and I know that's been a big issue for them. Their offensive line wasn't great, but it was hardly terrible, right? It just wasn't terrible. It was fine. It was whatever. But their defensive line, bad. And that led to them, their defense, I guess, overall played okay against the Patriots for Jacoby. Their defensive line was bad. They were getting pushed around all game. They couldn't control the clock. And offensively, they're supposed to be pretty good. They lose a couple offensive coaches, and now all of a sudden, they can't scheme Ja'Marr Chase more than a couple good looks in a game. Half the passes thrown to him seem just straight forced passes into tight coverage, and not the 50-50 ball tight coverage, but him working across the field or him trying to wrap around the defender with a guy. It was just, they weren't good looks at all for Chase. They couldn't really get him easy good looks. They couldn't get anything. They just couldn't get anything easy. And to be fair to the Fraud Ghouls, they start a lot of seasons very slow. Their first 2 weeks in September, they are pretty bad year over year, but this did look a little different. And then you stack this on top of the vibes throughout the entire camp. And then Ja'Marr Chase, oh, I'm sick. I might not play, but I want money, but they didn't pay me. And it's just,
here I am, ready to play.
And then afterwards, when asked about why he didn't get more touches, that's a question for the offensive coaching staff. What are you doing? What's going on here?
Zach Taylor being very vague, at the, in his press conference about the whole situation, he looks miserable. Zach Taylor kind of always looks miserable, but he looked more miserable than he normally looks, just kind of talking after that game. Joe Burrow, he's talking about the game and just hey, I'm glad that, Jamar's back. I don't get into the money. Glad Jamar's back. The vibes do seem off. The vibes seem off in Cincinnati. And it just doesn't, mistakes, really costly mistakes by a bunch of players that they're having to play because they need them, like Tanner Hudson and Charlie Jones. The weapons are depleted without T. Higgins, who Adam Schefter is saying probably won't be playing in the game against the Chiefs either. And now you've got Ja'Marr Chase. Yes, he's back, but you're talking about Andre Yoshivas and Tanner Hudson and Mike Gesicki, as the leading pass catchers in this. This is just the vibes are terrible. And then, oh, by the way, Joe Burrow is struggling to throw the football. He's having to flex his hand. He's having bruising, or he's having some swelling on the sidelines.
So you're saying that the forearm and wrist injury that no other quarterback has ever had in the history of the NFL has presented us with some unknown information about how Joe Burrow is currently doing?
Correct. And the sustainability of how it's gonna affect him. I don't think I have a lot of tinfoil theories about the Ja'Marr Chase situation I'm not getting into today because I just want to see how some things play out.
But he knows his buddy is cooked, so he wants out.
Or the Bengals know something about Joe Burrow's situation and they're not sure that they want to pay a receiver $1 bajillion because they know they're already in a tough situation with their quarterback who might be struggling with injury the rest of his career. Okay. But that's just that's way too early to say that. I wouldn't say that. I would never say that. It's just way too early to speculate. But that's the stuff you worry about, honestly. And sports hate's amazing. I don't want Joe Burrow to be hurt. I think sports hate's a lot of fun and rivalries are fun. I don't want it to go out like that, but there is reason to be a little bit concerned about this, right? It's just things don't seem to be going great with the injury for Joe Burrow, and it seemed to be affecting him on the side. Oh, by the way, Ja'Marr Chase threw a 10-per tantrum and got a delay of game penalty because he was still on the sideline complaining on a third down. So the vibes are just tremendous.
If we didn't say so, they also lost the New England Patriots, a team that was projected to lose the most games in the NFL this year. They had the highest odds to have the worst record. And they decided well, we don't really buy into that narrative. We are just going to go ahead and march into discount Cleveland and take this quick dub in week 1 of the NFL season.
I forgot about discount Cleveland. I'm not going to lie.
Nobody else has.
I think the Bengals owner wishes it was a discount. All right. That's going to do it for this episode. We will have a full breakdown schematically of Chiefs Bengals. There's going to be plenty to talk about because I'm sure there's going to be plenty of sound bites by Wednesday. We can't wait for that. Thank you all so much for listening. We love you. We appreciate you. We'll catch you later.
Trent Brown is also cooked. Whew.